My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his government's policies and actions?
Yes, and especially my announcement yesterday of 9 ambitious public service targets to help get New Zealand back on track. And this government owes it to Kiwis to focus on delivering on the things that matter most to them, like shorter wait times for emergency care and elective treatments, safer communities with less violent crime, and more kids at school and achieving the skills they need to live a better life. This is an ambitious government that wants the very best for all New Zealanders. We're not here to manage decline. We're here to get things done and deliver better outcomes. We want to see Māori do much better in this country, and that's what this government's working hard to do. Well, what we are doing is we're making sure we rebuild this economy, we restore law and order, and we deliver better health and education for Māori and non-Māori.
Supplementary. What is his view on the impact that policies such as the Fast Track Approvals Bill, the Treaty Principles Bill, the removal of Section AA from Oranga Tamariki, as well as the dismantling of Māori wards and the Māori Health Authority have had on our iwi authorities' mistrust of this government?
I disagree completely. We may disagree with the previous administration and the way they went about things, but we are here to make sure we improve outcomes for Māori. Because you can talk about it, as the previous government did, but outcomes for Māori went backwards under the last 6 years across a range of measures. We're saying enough is enough, and I look forward to that member's support for many of the programs that we have. We don't stand for racism in any form in this country. There is no place for racism in New Zealand, period. And whether you are a new New Zealander or you've been here for some time, the same standard holds for everybody.
Does he stand by his government's statements and actions?
Yes, and especially the target that I announced yesterday to reduce violent crime and to make our communities safer. One of this government's key priorities is to reverse the increase in violent crime, making Kiwis feel safer in their own homes, their businesses and their communities. We've already made progress to return the rights of victims instead of criminals to the centre of our justice system, and we look forward to implementing many, many more actions to restore law and order.
What does, and I quote, consistency with no additional warming from agricultural methane emissions, end quote, mean in the context of the National Act Coalition Agreement?
Well, what I'd say is that we want farmers, have to play their part in driving our emissions down. We can't just shut down the world's best farmers and send agricultural production offshore and making global greenhouse gas emissions worse in the process. We believe no additional warming is a fair basis for methane targets in particular. We haven't had a discussion around... No. Would you like to listen to my answer? Let me finish my answer. What I'm saying to you is you're jumping to targets. What we're saying here is we want to update the science base and make sure that we have the latest sense of methane science in place.
Does the Prime Minister agree with the Climate Change Commission that if the government seeks to reduce methane emissions targets, that it would be requiring households and businesses across this country to do more?
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is we're reviewing the science base on methane to make sure we do that. I'll just say to the member, I really look forward to her adjusting the Green Party website to come out in support of our GE policy so that we can actually drive emissions down.
The Prime Minister, does he stand by all of his government's statements and actions?
Yes, I do, and I'm particularly proud about what we announced around getting our kids back into school and also driving up academic achievement. It is an absolute travesty that only 47% of our kids go to school regularly in this country, a legacy of the previous government. And the consequence of that is kids are missing a year's worth of school. We're proud of our target of making sure we have 80% of our kids ready to go at high school so they can actually live the lives and the dreams that they want to have. What we observed over the last 6 years was a government that spent more, borrowed more, taxed more and delivered worse outcomes. You had your government had 6 years, you did very little, you failed at it. What we're doing is declaring 9 key targets, 2 in the education space. We're marching hard towards it, and every quarter we're going to be doing things to make sure we make progress on it.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. It was a pretty straight and simple question, and the Prime Minister has given a diatribe on the previous government's record. He hasn't actually either answered or addressed the question that I asked him.
Well, I think he could probably say something more, but I think he had addressed it, the Prime Minister.
Sorry, I didn't hear would you like to ask the question again?
I'm happy to repeat the question.
Yes, please do.
Were all aspects of this morning's announcement on truancy approved by the Cabinet If not, which parts have yet to be approved?
As we said, the announcements that we made today have been approved by Cabinet. What is exciting is that we are a government that is actually wanting to do something about attendance rates. We care deeply about our kids being in school so they can learn, so they can achieve more. We have a fantastic plan to tackle school attendance in New Zealand, something the previous administration, the previous minister for 5.5 years didn't seem to care about. We care about it. We're getting our kids back to school, period.
Honourable David Seymour.
Does the Prime Minister trust his capable ministers enough to announce details such as the colours of the traffic light will be green, yellow and red, and that each colour will have differing consequences, differing in severity, as I did just this morning?
Can I just say, well, I think we have a fantastic Associate Education Minister who is very fixated and bringing thoughtful leadership to how we get attendance up in this country. So I want to thank him for his great efforts.
Parliamentary question, Mr Speaker. Is the reason that the Suicide Prevention Office was being considered for closure because his government is requiring the Ministry of Health to cut 6.5% of its funding?
We are going to see a further increase in spending on healthcare, but what we are not tolerating is what that member did with his government for 6 years, which is he didn't actually. We're moving money from the back office.
Point of order. Mr Speaker, almost every question that I've asked the Prime Minister today, he's resorted to an attack on the previous government without actually answering what are relatively direct questions on his government's current announcements and decisions. The cutting of the Suicide Prevention Office is not a non-controversial matter. The questions that I've asked have been very straight questions. I don't think it's too much to ask that the Prime Minister takes them seriously and gives serious answers to them.
Well, I think he has given serious answers, if I'm listening to them. But I would also say to you that it is not inappropriate for ministers to refer to programs of a previous government. The difficulty comes where that reference becomes an attack. And I'd ask that all ministers, including the Prime Minister, think carefully about those comments in an answer. Prime Minister. Have you finished?
I'll finish, yeah.
Have you finished? Yeah, can you ask the question again?
Parliamentary. Is the reason the Suicide Prevention Office is being considered for closure that his government are requiring the Ministry of Health to cut 6.5% of its spending?
Well, he did.
The Suicide Prevention Office is not being considered for closure.
To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his government's policies and statements?
Yes, and especially the target that I announced yesterday for 75% fewer households in emergency housing. Too many children are being raised in motels, and my government is focused on reversing the huge growth seen under the previous government and its homelessness minister.
Will he guarantee to the representatives of Ngāti Tama, Ngāti Mutunga, Taranaki Iwi, Te Atiawa, Ngāti Maru, Ngā Ruahine, Ngāti Ruanui and Ngā Rauru Kītahi in Parliament today that the Trans-Tasman Resources seabed mining project will not be included in the listed projects in the fast-track approvals bill?
I'd just say to you, the government supports mining on a responsible basis, and there's a process underway.
Does he share the concern of Ngāti Ruanui that the fast-track approvals bill will be used as a, quote, backdoor to gain consent for the mining operation, end quote, after Trans-Tasman Resources withdrew from the process to determine whether its application for seabed mining is environmentally safe?
No, I'm proud of the fast-track process that we're bringing.
Is it appropriate for the government to enable mining companies to bypass court-directed consenting processes through which iwi, environmental experts, local government, local communities and the fishing industry have been fighting for 10 years to prevent extractive industries destroying our marine environment?
So just make them questions and not speeches. Prime Minister may respond.
Well, to be honest, I struggled to find what the question was.
Does he have confidence in the impartiality of Minister Shane Jones and his ability to balance responsibilities under different portfolios, including resources, regional development and fisheries, in relation to decision-making under the proposed fast-track legislation?
Absolutely. That is a minister that is determined to grow this country, to do the right thing by this country, who thinks deeply about where it's going, and he has my total backing.